Well, good afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. Hess. How are you both doing? Oh, that's great. That's great. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for coming out. And I have to ask before we get started here, how was your European vacation? Oh, that's fantastic. Italy. Wow, beautiful. Now, were Jack and Eugene and Beth able to go along, or were they too young? Okay, well, maybe next time, right? And I don't know if you can see it, but I have a picture of, it's called Plaza de España, where I actually proposed to my wife in Sevilla in Spain. So it was a magical time, and I'll never forget it. And now we have that picture to remind ourselves. But maybe we can swap some pictures when we're done here today. How does that sound? Okay, great, great. Well, are you ready to jump in and get started? Let's do it. So I know we went over goals last time. We went over expectations. And now the purpose of this meeting is to give recommendations. And here is the written plan for both of you. And I can have that sent to you afterwards as well. But now is a chance for us to give the written recommendations to you in there, but also go over them in this meeting. So I'm going to do my best to summarize them, to give them more context so that you know when you're looking at that written financial plan later, what you're looking at. And of course, I'm always available if you have any questions. So the purpose of the plan that we're giving you is to address your very unique, very special financial situation. Okay, so it's a very unique plan just to you, and it demonstrates the financial planning process that our team took in order to make the recommendations we're making so that ultimately you can meet your financial goals. That's why we're here, right? So the format of the financial plan, you can open that up to the first page there. As you can see, it starts off with an outline, and then it'll go over your profile, the scope of our engagement, meaning what exactly are both parties doing in this relationship, what's the goal here, the purpose of the plan, the goals that you have set out that we just talked about, the risk tolerance that you have as investors, economic assumptions, summary of your financial health, risk management, investment planning, retirement planning, income tax planning, last one, estate planning, and then lastly, we have an action plan set out for you that I know you're going to love. If you're like me, if you like timetables and you like check boxes to take care of things. So we're going to set that up for you. Now, before I get started reviewing everything, were there any changes since the last time we met? No? Okay. Oh, you want to go on more vacations? I completely understand, and we can make that happen, right? So let's jump in here. As a client profile, John, just confirming things here, you are 71 years old and recently retired business owner, correct? So congratulations again on the sale of your business. I'm sure that was a huge relief, and you well deserved. So congratulations, congrats again. And Mary, you are a 68-year-old retired school teacher. Congratulations on a great career. Both my sister and my brother-in-law, her husband, are teachers at a local primary school. So I know there's never a dull moment. I know the sacrifice you made and the commitment you made to educating our young ones. So thank you so much, and congratulations on a great career. Now you also have two children, Edward and Brent, ages 42 and 40, and then three grandchildren that we talked about before, and everyone's in great health, correct? That's great. So great to hear. What a blessing that you're all in great health. So now let's talk about your goals. Okay, we went over these last time. We helped you identify them. I think they're great goals. So let's review those. 1, reduce any estate and gift tax liability and ensure all estate planning documents are in order. 2, review insurance contracts and discuss the implications of purchasing a long-term care policy. Number 3, reduce personal income taxes. Okay, very important. Totally understand that goal. Number 4, based on risk tolerance level, recommend a diversified portfolio that meets your investment needs and expectations. Okay, so great goals. That really is defining everything we're doing here today. So let's talk very quickly before we jump into your risk tolerance and your economic assumptions. So first, risk tolerance. You filled out that questionnaire last time and got it into us, so I'm glad you could get a chance to do that. And we found that you are very willing to take investment risk. Okay, so with a very important caveat, no tobacco stocks. And that's very important to you. It's very important to us. My condolences to your grandparents who died from lung cancer. I can't imagine that must have been very difficult to see them go through. I want you to know we're going to respect that commitment. We're going to uphold that, and we are going to avoid investment in tobacco stocks. Okay, so you don't need to worry about that. Now, economic assumptions. These are assumptions you made with us. So inflation to be at a rate of 2.25%. Now, I want to review again. I know we talked about this last time. That might fluctuate, so that's not guaranteeing that's what inflation will be every year. But inflation over a long period of time will be at 2.25%. So I think that's a very wise range and wise assumption. We actually might be entering a period of inflation now, some economists think. So again, that might fluctuate, but over the years, we're aiming both parties here, and you've identified 2.25%. Okay, good. And then the risk-free rate, you've identified as 1%. So again, what that means, I know we went over this last time, theoretically, that's an investment with zero risk, which can actually happen. There's always risk involved. But theoretically, an investment with zero risk. So often people use the treasury bill for this. So 1%, great assumption. And then the market risk premium, you've identified as 7%. And essentially, again, what that is, the difference between the expected return on the market and a risk-free rate, which you've identified as 1%. So great. Any changes to that? No? Okay. Well, let's keep going here. Let's take a look at the summary of your financial health. Okay, so we're going to play doctor here and take a look at your health from a financial standpoint. So we supplied you here a couple documents you can take a look at and calculations. One is a statement of financial position. Another is some ratio analyses. And third, the statement of cash flow. Okay, where's the money going? Follow the cash. So you can take a look at those. And first, wanted to go over your net worth, which is $12,884,524. And you had a disposable income of $1,284,472. So both of you, congratulations again. Of course, on your great earnings, your great net worth. You should feel accomplished for all that you've earned. You should not feel bad about it at all. And most of all, you should feel very proud of how good of savers you are. So we've all heard stories of people that have earnings even better than yours, right? I'm thinking of athletes and celebrities here, and they just waste it. So it's not always an equivalent that if you earn a lot, you save a lot. So well done. It's setting you up beautifully to meet some of these goals that you set for yourself and your family legacy. So this is a sizable and healthy net worth and disposable income, and this can be used toward reaching your goals that we are already identified. So one note to make there when talking about your disposable income is that the down payment that you received, John, on the sale of your business on the installment note, that severely increased this year's income. So it's not always going to be that. I'm sure you know that, but I just wanted to make that note. So now let's jump to the financial ratios versus benchmarks. Okay, so you had a considerably high current ratio. Current ratio meaning current assets over current liabilities. Okay, so that was 850,000 over 21,169. So that came out to a ratio of 40.15. So that is far more than the benchmark of 2. Okay, so just going through these ratios, then we're going to talk about what it means and some of our recommendations later. You also clearly passed the monthly housing cost ratio with about 1%. It's 0.99% compared to an upper limit benchmark of 28%. So well underneath that. The monthly housing costs and other housing debt ratio, it's a mouthful, the monthly housing costs and other housing debt ratio is also passed because of a 13.9 ratio. It's far less than a 36% benchmark that we use. Okay, so it's well done there. And then based on homeowner benchmarks of 28% and 36%, these calculations show that your current housing debt load, it's manageable and far less than what your income can support. Okay, so here are our recommendations to you based on that information. Your current emergency fund is significantly higher than the 3 to 6 months of expenses amount that's typically recommended. So typically we say 3 to 6 months of expenses, that's a healthy emergency fund. You're far beyond that. So the $800,000 in CDs, it's pretty excessive and should be addressed to bring the emergency fund down to even a conservative amount of 6 months of expenses, which we did that for you. It comes out to $183,710, so about $184,000. So currently there's a surplus there in your emergency fund of over $666,000. So one important note here, I know you're planning on purchasing a car soon, so that's very exciting. I just did it myself, went through a car purchase, and although there are some annoying parts about it, it's also really fun. We want to make sure we set some money aside for that. So actually the surplus we're going to calculate as $626,290 after accounting for that new car purchase. So to improve your current financial position and to address your goal of wanting to invest wisely, we're recommending the investment of that nearly $627,000 from the CDs, that surplus, into your growth mutual fund, the international mutual fund, and the balanced mutual fund. So this will help you to accomplish the goal of maximizing diversification along with your aggressive, remaining aggressive with your investments like you prefer. So the way you're going to implement this is at the end of that 1-year term on your CD that's coming up in a couple months, invest 50% of that in a growth fund and then 25% in both your balanced and international funds of that surplus. Okay, any questions there? No? Okay, let's keep moving down here. We're going to look at your risk management profile. So documents that were provided for you, we ran a scenario to identify weaknesses in various insurance policies and their coverage. So I hope you find that helpful. Let's review a couple of those. First, the homeowner's policy. That, a general rule of thumb, it should always be at least 80% of the house. Okay, $775,000. Okay, so that comes out to $620,000. That's what it should be at. This will provide you with more adequate coverage. Okay, so that's what we're aiming for. The current policy only provides $400,000 of coverage. So let's give you an example here, because if you're like me, you're kind of a visual learner, auditory learner, you need to hear things for it to make sense. So as an example, let's say you had a loss of $100,000 to your home. Your current coverage represents a shortfall of $35,984, so basically $36,000. So it's very important that we increase that and address that pretty quickly. The vacation home insurance coverage is adequate. We took a look at that as well. Your personal auto policy for your cars, it looks adequate. Another example for you, if there was a claim for $14,000, it would pay out $13,650. Okay, so you're good. So that's everything but the deductible. So you're good there. Now, something you may not have heard before is an umbrella policy. Some people call them personal umbrella policies, or a pup. Kind of like my pup that's sitting right here napping. So I'm sorry if you hear her later. But this personal umbrella policy, we are recommending the purchase of this for the coverage of $2 million to $3 million. Okay, so this will protect above and beyond what your other policies provide. So more examples for you. This would cover if someone comes over and has an accident on your property and is injured and has excessive medical bills, whether you invited them over or not. You could be liable. So maybe there's an extreme car accident, let's say a 10 or 12 car pileup, and it's going beyond what your auto policy provides for. Well, now you have this umbrella policy to cover you. So both of you, I want you to know you've worked very hard for your assets. Let's make sure those are protected. So that's really the heart of why we're recommending that. In addition to your Medicare Part B and D policies, we're recommending you add a Medigap policy to supplement your existing Medicare policies. Let's say you received a considerable medical bill. It may not be covered by those existing policies alone. So that's why we're recommending that. Now, John, I know you had questions on long-term care insurance. So we wanted to make sure we address that. And there's no doubt about it, long-term care can be expensive. There's no doubt about it. It could be north of $100,000 for a private room in a long-term care facility. Up where you guys are in Boston, it could be much more than that, right? And not even speaking, 10 years from now down the line, what it could cost. Okay, so it is expensive. We recognize that. But we wanted to be honest here. With your asset levels, we believe it's safe and prudent to self-insure rather than pay the premiums that someone at your ages would need to pay. Okay, so do you have any questions on that? No? Okay, let's keep rolling here. Let's take a look at the investment planning section. So the documents that we provided for you, take a look there, is an investment policy statement and analysis of the investment portfolio. Okay, so those were prepared for you. So let's take a look at your current situation. Your current investment portfolio definitely has some strengths, but it's not perfect. I don't know if you were expecting me to say it was. There are some weaknesses that we identified, so it's probably something you're relieved to hear. So although there are just south of $4 million, $3,847,682 to be exact, in non-qualified assets, and then you have a separate $1.1 million in qualified assets, north of $1.1 million. And again, qualified meaning it has certain tax advantages. Part of the non-qualified assets, the stock portfolio, it's not well diversified. It's not performed well. So though combined with the mutual fund in the non-qualified portion of your retirement, combined with that, it has slightly overperformed compared to the market using our Sharpe ratio, which you can take a look at and how we calculated that, and it lays it all out for you. In itself, the stock portfolio is underperforming the market. Okay, so however, the mutual fund, the 401ks, they've performed well and are well diversified. So there's no recommended changes that are needed at this time with those. So now let's take a look at what we're recommending here. First, we need you to diversify the stock portfolio because there's only 4 stocks in there with a total cost basis of $960,000 and a fair market value. So 960, what's you paid? Fair market value, what it's worth right now, is $940,000. So a tax harvesting strategy can be used to create a $3,000 loss in the current tax year. So that's the maximum allowed in the current tax year. So stock A, take a look at stock A. That has an unrealized loss of $218,000. Okay, severe loss. And although the other 3 did combine for $198,000 unrealized gain, it is a net loss. Okay, so these need to be put into assets, into something more diversified. We'll get to that later. Second, Mary's 401k is currently allocated to a 2025 target fund. So these target funds, this 2025 target fund, what it's intended for is an employee whose plan is to retire in the year 2025. And Mary, you just shared you retired last year, right? So this is not exactly for those who are already retired. These funds should be reallocated to a fund that represents your status as a retiree and reflects your investment preferences. So we have some recommendations for you next time we meet. Finally, to address the investment of the down payment of the installment note, which you received, we recommend investing the remainder of the down payment into the mutual fund portfolio in order to address goal number 4. Okay, your number 4 goal, diversified investing that meets your risk tolerance and being willing to take above average risk. Okay, so we'll address that goal with that step. If you accept these investment planning recommendations, our team is going to develop an asset allocation strategy. So we're going to develop a strategy for you on how to invest those for your portfolio that maximizes return in a tax efficient manner. I know that's important for you. We're going to make it more diversified than right now, and it matches your above average risk tolerance level. So we're still going to remain pretty aggressive to match what your risk tolerance is. So any questions on those items before we move on to retirement planning? Okay, well, let's move on. I know you both mentioned last time that you're not that worried about retirement savings. You probably take a look at your assets and see that you're not that worried compared to the other sections of the financial plan. And I completely understand that. You have comparatively to your retirement income a pretty low cost of living. However, we do still have some recommendations for you based on your goals. Okay, so number one, your 401k. Now, John, you expressed last time we met your desire to grow that 401k tax-free and distribute the maximum amount left in your account to your children upon your death. Okay, I think that's a great goal. Okay, I really do. And we ran a scenario for you so that you can see what it would look like for tax purposes, what that would look like. The account currently has north of $1 million. It's $1,054,540 fair market value, so what it's worth right now. And it's placed in a tax deferred 401k account. I mean, that's going to get taxed when you pull it out. In order to grow the money in a 401k, in a tax-free manner, which it's not doing right now, it's going to get taxed. It would need to be rolled into a Roth account. We're recommending a Roth IRA. Based on your 37% tax bracket, this would generate a $390,179 federal income tax. But it would accomplish your goal that you set out for growing the account tax-free for your children at your death. So keep in mind, after you make that conversion, it could still grow until your death, right? So that doesn't mean that you're down $390,000. It does immediately for that federal income tax, but that could grow back up to it, for example, in 8 to 10 years, okay? So another note, it's very important to intentionally set aside that nearly $400,000, the $390,000, so that you can pay that tax without any liquidity trouble, okay? So we want you to set that aside beforehand. So in order to continue taking advantage of the tax-free growth in that Roth IRA, we also are recommending an annual contribution. So an annual contribution to the Roth IRA through a backdoor conversion. Because you are both over the age of 50, a contribution of $7,000 each, totaling $14,000, can be made to an IRA and immediately rolled into a Roth IRA. So you might have seen somewhere that you're not eligible to contribute to a Roth IRA because of your income, and you're right. But that doesn't mean you can't contribute to a typical IRA, so not a Roth IRA, a normal IRA, and then do what's called a backdoor conversion into a Roth IRA, okay? So because of your age, you're able to do combined $14,000 into one account. So that's what we're recommending to you. Any questions on those items? No? Okay, let's keep moving here. Moving down to the income tax planning, okay? So you can flip over your pages there. Good. So let's take a look at those documents that we prepared for you. One being tax calculations for the installment note and the inverted Jenny stamp. Those were both prepared, kind of letting you look at what the tax implications are. Okay, so first let's look at the down payment, that installment down payment. After receiving that 25% down payment, which is $1 million, and subtracting the return basis of $268,000, there's a realized and recognized long-term capital gain of $731,250. Okay, so long-term capital gains tax rate for your income bracket is 20%, creating a tax of $146,250. So just keep that in mind. So to give you a clear understanding of the tax implications of what one of those installment payments will be, we've actually calculated the first installment payment made to you. Okay, so the first payment of $36,568 less the $10,000 interest income and return a basis of $7,000, $7,140 to be exact. That creates a long-term capital gain of $19,428. So at your long-term capital gains tax rate, this creates a tax of nearly $4,000, $3,885.60. So want you to keep that in mind. Want you to keep that aside. And I know you were worried about it, so wanted you to know. And it's nothing that can't be dealt with, so I want you to be comforted in that. John, I know you had also questions surrounding the possibility of the sale of your family's inverted Jenny stamp. So first, I hadn't heard of this stamp, so congratulations on that awesome inheritance gift. It looks awesome, and I understand it's a very sizable asset. So congratulations, and we ran an analysis of that sale. So here's the assumptions we used. I know it wouldn't exactly be this, but so that you have a good idea of what that sale would look like. The assumptions are that it was sold 10 years from now, so 10 years down the line, at a sale price of about $1.5 million, so $1.55 million, with the caveat that there's a 15% commission fee at the highest tax bracket. So I wanted you to keep all those assumptions in mind. So after the commission, which came out to $232,500, after that's subtracted to receive an adjusted sales price of $1,317,500, the inherited basis of $750,000 is subtracted to conclude a realized and recognized gain of $592,500. So that's the gain that you're getting, $592,500. So taxed at the rate of 28% for a collectible, this creates a federal tax liability of after that sale of $165,900. So I hope that gives you a good sense of what you should be expecting tax-wise should you consider to sell that with those caveats and those assumptions. So I hope you find that helpful. Any questions? All right, well, let's keep trucking here. Our last section before we get to our action plan is the estate planning. So first, I want you to know, I know it's strange for folks to talk about death like this. I recognize that. I know it's a little different for me because I'm in this every day and having these conversations every day. So if this sounds at all strange or weird or not natural, just know, sorry, my dog in the background again, just know that you're not alone, okay? So I'm here to help you through this, but most clients would feel the same way you do, okay? But also, I know how much you care for your kids, how much you care for your grandkids. We want to make sure that your great assets that you've accumulated, we want to make sure those pass down and maximize what you're setting them up for going forward, right? I know that's one of your goals. So I know it's hard to talk about, but it's so important, and I know you know that too. So let's jump in here. First, documents. A property ownership spreadsheet and estate tax calculations, those are prepared for you so you can take a look. So current situation, again, I know this is weird to talk about. If John dies this year, there would be no estate tax due since married couples right now in the year 2021 have an exemption amount, combined exemption of $23.4 million. Okay, so the issue, however, is if Mary would die after John, John would have used $12.2 million of that exemption, leaving Mary with roughly $11.2 million to cover both his assets that were passed to Mary and Mary's assets. So this needs to be addressed. Another problem is that each estate is subject to pretty excessive probate fees and expenses at this time, so we're going to address that. There are no essential estate planning documents in place that I see of. So what I'm talking about is a power of attorney, healthcare proxies. These are important documents that you folks need to get in place in order to manage your affairs if either one of you, God forbid, were to become incapacitated. Okay, so we're going to talk about those again later. So here are our recommendations to you based on that information. To limit the chances of Mary's estate owing a significant taxes through the federal estate tax, and this is again after John's hypothetical death, we're recommending placing a number of assets of John's in an irrevocable trust. Okay, so there's information that I included for you can take a look at with these trusts. But those assets could include John's life insurance policy and the installment receivable, together totaling $4.7 million in today's dollars, not even what it could grow to later. Okay. Also, we're recommending changing the titles of a lot of things: CDs, mutual fund, portfolio, installment receivable, vacation home, cars, boat trailer, and the inverted Jenny stamp. These are all under sole ownership, and we want these to be changed. We're recommending these to be changed to joint tenancy with right of survivorship. So these changes would automatically transfer the properties to the surviving spouse at the first spouse's death, without going through probate, without issues there. So the implementation, what's this going to look like? An appointment with an estate planning attorney is needed to accomplish these estate planning objectives and should be made as soon as possible. We're going to talk about that timeline later. There's going to be costs associated with this. I want you to know that, including changing the property titles, establishing the trust, and attorney's fees. This costs to implement is approximately $10,000, and the expense can be dispersed from your cash that's currently held in your joint savings account. So yes, there is added costs, but it is so necessary for your financial health that this step is taken. So I can't stress that enough. So we got through all those sections of recommendations. Now we're at your action plan. Again, if you're like me and you like goals and you like checking off check boxes of things you've accomplished and a clear timeline, this section's for you. This is why I write this out. So here are some summaries of the recommendations with timeframes attached. First, visit with an estate planning attorney ASAP, as soon as possible, to obtain proper estate planning documents, the trust, and a plan for the spouse's incapacity. This is the first goal you identified, and it requires immediate attention. I know I'm stressing that a lot, but it does. An attorney can assist you with implementing all of the estate planning recommendations made in this plan, including that irrevocable trust. And it's feasible for you to set up an appointment with an attorney pretty quickly. So is it feasible for you to schedule an appointment in the next week? Okay, great. That's good to hear. And if you need recommendations, I can create that for you and send those over. Excuse me. Second, we're recommending the investment of the $626,000 from CDs. That's that surplus amount in your CDs over what you need for emergency fund into your growth mutual fund, the international mutual fund, and the balanced mutual fund. This will help to accomplish your goal of maximizing diversification along with remaining aggressive per your risk tolerance. So as soon as that 1 year term ends on your CDs in the next couple months, we're recommending you make that transfer. Before we next meet, okay, which is coming up hopefully soon, we want you to increase your homeowner's policy on your primary residence and purchase an umbrella policy that we spoke of before, the PUP. Again, that homeowner's policy should be at least $620,000 to provide you with adequate coverage, using that example we used before. The umbrella policy should have coverage of $2 to $3 million, so somewhere in that range, and that addresses your second stated goal, which is taking a look at your policies and in your coverages in terms of insurance. Lastly, fourth one here, we need you to diversify that stock portfolio. We're really recommending this. Our firm can develop an investment asset allocation strategy, meaning where we're going to invest this and what we're going to invest it in for you, that maximizes investment returns, minimizes taxes, and it's also aligned with your high tolerance to investment risk. So we'll present this investment planning recommendations for you in our next meeting. So let's plan that again in 2 weeks if that works for you. Okay, great. So if there's no more questions, both of you, I can't thank you enough for being here, and I can't wait until our next visit. Now let's take a look at those pictures from your vacation.